Congratulations on the film.
Thank you very much.
This movie is something that you've wanted to make for 10 years, I hear. Tell me, not so much how you got the idea, but how you keep enthusiasm for an idea for that amount of time. I mean, that's a long time. Things have to, and you worked on a lot of other movies in between, but you kept coming back to this one.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was funny. It started really kind of as a lark. There was this competition, and I entered it, and it was really kind of, I turned the idea in the night before the deadline was due and whipped it off. It was the Fast and the Furious with snails, and that was it. It wasn't like my life was like invested in this one idea, and if it didn't happen, I was going to be crushed. It just happened, and it won the competition. They bought the idea, and then...
This is DreamWorks.
This is DreamWorks. And then it went nowhere, really, for a long time. I went on to a bunch of other projects and kept kind of thinking about it. For starters, they bought it, so it's not easy to get a studio to buy an idea. So the fact that I had an in there was like, all right, well, there's got to be something in this. There's got to be a way to skin this thing somehow. And I started kind of over time becoming invested in it. And becoming connected with this character and starting to think about it in different ways. And I had my kids. I have a 6-year-old now and a 6-year-old boy, 3-year-old girl. And my 6-year-old boy was just from birth practically came with this love of cars and racing and all things fast. Yeah. And this house that I moved into during that time had a snail problem in the yard. So there's something about what happens when you become a dad, and being able to make one of these movies. I start to be able to have this other point of view. And I was not a car nut or anything growing up, or a race fan even particularly. So it really got me thinking about the character in different terms, and that freed me up to realize that a snail, it really is kind of the perfect underdog. Nobody expects anything of them. Their lives are filled with obstacles.
Nobody really knows what they do.
Nobody really knows what they do. Right. Other than being kind of gross and pesty. And it was like, all right, well, as an underdog, that was a story that, I love underdog movies, and, from Rocky to Breaking Away, which is the one that I'm really, really adore. And started kind of tackling it, just sort of chipping away at the characters and trying to find a way to tell the story through the characters rather than like coming up with a plot and letting the plot kind of push me around.
Is it probably fair to say that this is a much different movie that you would have made 10 years ago when you first pitched the idea, or certainly before you had kids?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it absolutely evolved, I think, and probably... is definitely the best version of itself too. So I'm happy that after all this time, at least it's it's something I feel really proud of. There's just something as I've gotten older and matured and had kids, and I go to a lot of animated movies and always have, but I find myself kind of growing impatient with animated movies that are just a bunch of gags, and I feel like I'm just going to amuse my kid or to babysit my kid or find an activity, and yet, by the same virtue, I think it's pointless to make an animated movie that doesn't have some appeal to children, So it really kind of it's made me want to see all sides of it a bit more and really find the heart, find the human story in there, that universal thing that any audience member can connect with, but not lose the kids in it either. They're important.
Well, I think that there's a couple of what I thought were really poetic moments in this, and one,
Thank you.
And I don't think this really gives anything away. It doesn't give anything away. Turbo was looking at what we think is a falling star or shooting star,
right,
and it turns out not to be that.
Right.
And it's a light on a plane, and as it flies away, his kind of wish goes with it.
Right.
Is
Right.
what I took away from it. I thought that's a really lovely kind of poetic moment.
Nice.
In a big kids movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're looking to insert that kind of soul in here, I think, to deepen it a bit.
Just make it, that's like a classic kind of Make-A-Wish on a Star moment that's treated more real. It's a more real life kind of outcome where you make a wish and nothing happens, Yeah, it was really just trying to get inside these characters, and that was my approach with the actors as well, and the performances that they each gave was. I mean, I think they're all really nice, subtle performances for an animated movie, and with
I think so too. The subtlety, at the beginning of the film in particular. With Ryan Reynolds' voice, Paul Giamatti, and a number of the others. What I liked is that they weren't. I don't even really. It's not like they're yucking it up with one. Like they're talking, they're speaking to one another. And there are quiet moments. There's a lot more time when there's no dialogue in this movie than I would expect.
Yeah, well, that was really important to me after having done these shorts, because the problem with the shorts. I was confined to like a 20-minute time length, which was actually not even that long, and being in the franchise of Madagascar, which I love. I love those characters.
Those penguins made somebody a lot of money.
And they're good. They're all fun. They're all really fun characters. But you had to have the requirement of all those shorts was like all the characters have to be in the short. You have to service each storyline, and then to try to wedge all that into like a 20-minute storyline made for like almost zero time to have breath.
Yeah.
To have those moments of quiet. So when I got to finally dive into this thing, I'm like, I gotta have the quiet. Like you need it's like music. The rests are just as important as the notes.
Well, I think one of the actors in some Ang Lee movie was saying, "I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. I just say you've got me sitting around." And Ang Lee apparently said to him, "If there's no valleys, people won't appreciate the peaks." And I guess that's it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The character design is interesting because they're snails.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of facial features. There's a mouth, and then there's eyes on like little antenna eyes.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how much emotion you can pull out of that.
Yeah.
I thought I didn't when I first saw them. I thought I don't know if this is limiting or not. And then 20 minutes in, you realize it's not.
Yeah, you realize you can get away with it, but it wasn't without its challenges.
Yeah,
for sure. They were some of the hardest characters that any of us, have worked with initially. I think once we figured out the rules and what makes them appealing and what to do and what not to do with them, it started to kind of get much easier. But initially, the fact that you've got all those things that you usually rely on, like arms and legs and eyebrows even, that aren't at your disposal. We had to get more creative about how to do it. I did drawings early on of like these snails with arms, and I'm like, this is creepy. I don't want to see this. And nobody else did. The proof was in the pudding. It was just a matter of coming up with enough viable, creative other ways for them to emote and move around, and Well,
you've got the shell, which takes up 90% of their body, really, that doesn't move at all.
Right. Well, it does move though. Actually, it's we that shell is actually fairly expressive in its own way.
Yeah, but there's no arms. There's no they're much. It's a much different thing.
It's a much different thing.
But I really liked how. They high five with their eyes and they hug and that sort of thing. Like there are ways around it, I guess, and I suppose it just takes time to sit and stare at the page. You've drawn this thing for hours and hours, and like, what would how would they interact with
well, it's funny. One of the first assignments you get in animation school is to animate a flour sack.
Oh yeah.
And there's nothing on the flour sack other than the sack, right? And that was kind of the point of learning as a first assignment, because it forces you to really figure out how to make this inanimate thing emote.
Right. And
a lot of our animators almost had to kind of go back and relearn the basics in order to flesh out these snails properly and have them kind of in a similar way. There's so little to work with. Like you just have to go deeper. You have to be more creative about it.
Yeah. Paul Giamatti, I guess just the voice work that he does is so beautiful in this. And it sounds like him, but it doesn't really sound like him. That was sort of interesting to me. Like the voice, the intonation of his voice, clearly it's Paul Giamatti, but there's something that felt different to me about it.
Well, he's just, it's Chet. He's he's created a character and I understood this character so well, and he's a great actor. Any movie he's in, he kind of disappears into the character. I think that he's just so gifted.
What's his name? Ed. Ed Norton went to Yale with Paul Giamatti, apparently, and he told me that Giamatti, I think, was the year ahead of him, and they did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest live on stage, and he said that all the other actors in all the other years used to every night go and sit in the wings and watch him. He said just because he was...
Who did he play?
He was
Jack Nicholson?
Jack Nicholson's character,
Jeez.
yeah, McMurtry.
God,
And he said
I would have killed to
just
see
watch
that
him.
version.
Yeah, they said they used to just sit there and watch him. He said better than going to class was watching that guy on stage. Yeah.
He floored me. He really floored me. I mean, he would have us laughing and crying, and and he put so much into every session, and so much. He was like sweaty from just how, and he loves it, and there's a real like sense of joy in the work for him.
Yeah. That's your time, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.